WKQ-FM, Graham, Breckenridge, Q94.7.
Travis is a sports encyclopedia with a mind like a scientist and an arm like a cannon. Rick is a former Mine Golden Voice broadcasting psycho. And Joe is a free-willing wild card with zero sports knowledge to speak of. Together, they make the crew of Offsides. Now on Q94.7. Brought to you by The Oil Pit, D&J's Polaris, Womack Construction, and Texoma Foam Installation Services.
All right, good morning again to you on a Saturday here in October. Hope everybody is having a great morning. Time for Offsides. Rick, Travis, and Joe bringing you what happened last night and what's going to happen the next day or two. Good morning, boys.
Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, Travis. Is Joe glad to have you along with us also?
Good morning, Rickolas.
Joe, you seem a little down this morning.
Oh gosh,
you seem a little down.
You know, Rick, there's a time in your life when you realize that all that you've worked for and everything that you've done just doesn't measure up to some folks.
I know. I feel your pain.
You feel like you do your best in life, and you try to be friends with everybody,
and then they just pass you by. You know?
Yeah, such is life, Rick.
I guess we'll get through it somehow. So,
okay, what's going on here is that both of these numbskulls are upset because they weren't invited to my 2-year-old's birthday party. That's right.
I'm not so.
My son turns 2 today. We're having his
know.
birthday party, and they're really mad at me for not getting invited. I handled none of the invitations or anything like that. But
the word is not upset. I think devastation is more the word.
I would say so.
Yeah, devastation.
You
is more
guys
the word.
have kind of been on it for about 30 minutes.
No, we've been up for like 24 hours now.
You know, you realize in life as you get older that people take things from you. And
Well, I tell you what. Poor old Maddox, I had that $5,000 college endowment that I was going to give him for his birthday. But, I think I'll just keep it now.
Yeah, just keep it, Rick.
Yeah, I think I'll just keep it. Yeah. All right, enough of that. We may sprinkle that in a few times.
These guys.
Yeah. And Travis keeps blaming it on his wife. I don't believe it for a second.
Well, I blame everything on my wife.
No, I don't believe it for a second. I would have a funny feeling. Okay, let's keep rolling here. Last night in college, pro and high school football, the game of the day was Graham Steers, Vernon Lions last night from Vernon, Texas. And it started out, a little bit unnerving, I guess you'd say the word. I wasn't really all that scared about it. I was a little unnerved the way that Vernon just drove down the field in a heartbeat, got the touchdown. Graham came back and answered with that. And then the battle royal started. I mean, it wasn't it wasn't pretty. Ben Davis had a career night, but it wasn't the most beautiful game you're ever going to see. A lot of mistakes, both sides of the ball. There was a lot of mistakes by both teams. There was a lot of punching, hitting, kicking, slapping, ankle twisting. I mean, all this stuff. It's a typical Graham Vernon football game.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, there was one thing about this game that I loved a ton. Rick, that we haven't seen all season. That's it. Vernon actually played up to the challenge of the Graham Steers. Now, I know that's kind of tooting our own horn, like, oh, look at us, we're so good teams, But a lot of teams, I haven't seen one team come in here or, come step up against the Graham Steers and probably, and just play their guts out. And that's what we saw from Vernon. And that's what made it such a good game. If Vernon scores instead of fumbling on the goal line at just before the half, and Joe talked about this being one of the plays that he thought really turned the game around for the Steers. But I mean, it's a 21-20 game, or 21 up if they go for 2 and get it game at halftime. So it was really just, the second half is where the Steers really separated themselves, but up until that point, man, the Vernon Lions just gutted it out. I think what ultimately got them was the Steers being a little better, 1, and 2, just having so many people on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, one thing I think Vernon had a big-time disadvantage at was you got a bunch of guys, and I'm talking the big starters on the team, playing both ways. And that really, really hurt the Vernon Lions in the third and fourth quarters. And I tell you, I don't know. We don't give a player of the game to the opposing team. We never have, probably never will. But last night, if we could, or if we did, we'd have to go to Orlando Heyman. That kid got out there basically on one foot and tried to put that team on his back and run the ball.
Right, and you could see he came in limping, he went out limping. Took him all week this past week to try to get some help with that knee of his, and it just you could see after the game he was hurting, but again, give it to the class and the coaching, the Graham Steers. So many players and coaches even went up to him after the game and told him, "Hey, you played hard. Get healthy. Good luck out there." So just kind of again speaks to the character and the class of the Graham Steers.
Yeah, and you really got to look at that kid and say, "Man, this kid." Did you really want him out there last night in that game?
I don't know.
That was a tough decision.
Here's the funny thing is, of course, we had Jake Womack Construction, our statistician, the Steers statistician, in the booth with us. He typically does that. It helps us out a lot, especially with the broadcast. As far as just kind of knowing overall what's going on. But as Heyman was coming off, Jake asked me which foot. Was he originally injured on? Was his left or right? And I said, well, it looks like it's his left, judging by the difference in size. And you could tell that thing it was so swollen and had so much tape on that ankle. I mean, it looked like a club foot compared to his other one. And he, as soon as he saw it, he said, "Oh, wow," because it was just, the kid came into the game already needing so much, but what a gutsy performance. Absolutely nothing but credit to that kid. He, he played his tail off as much as he could, had to come to the sideline more than he wanted to, and eventually just couldn't finish the game. I don't know if they wanted him to finish the game once it got out of hand, but just one of those games. Vernon's a tough team; they're a tough town, and this is their championship game, and rightfully so, because I think that game decides who wins the district title.
Oh yeah, and looking at that way. Way Vernon, their MO is get the ball, hang on to it, run the clock down, keep your offense off the field. Well, I think they've been exposed now because people are going to, from the Gainesville game and the Graham game. I know Orlando Heyman was hurt, but when you take him out of the mix, people can key on Valverde. People can key on Garza. Those two guys were shut down last night. And really, Valverde last year ran all over the Graham Steers in that game here in Graham. And last night, they were so shut down. And, defensively last night, the defensive backs, I guess they kind of figured it out more in the third and fourth quarter than they did the first and the second quarter.
Yeah, because we were getting torched in the first half just because our guys are, going from a zone system to a man system, and they're just kind of having to learn man on the fly. But yeah, go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry.
But, other thing is that as far as the defense goes, like I said, the defensive backs got it really figured out in the third and fourth quarter. But defensive line last night, how many times did we call Colton Langley's name? How many times did Tiny D get out there last night? And when Dustin was hitting people last night, he was hitting them with authority. I saw that one sack.
He knocked Garza in the next week.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, Garza got the pass off for about a 30-yard gain on that one. But, he got the pass off right before he just went down. It took him a while to get up.
Well, he drove him into the ground whenever he hit him. And then there was another shot down near the end zone that Dustin got on somebody. You keep hitting people like that, I'm going to tell you what, it's going to bring a little attention to that defensive line last night. And Husky was doing a great job clogging up the middle. I don't know how many runs went up the middle last night. Not very many. Most of it was outside.
Yeah, not a lot of success for the Lions up the middle. And you know what? It's just good to see. It's just good to see the explosion, the burst through the offensive line from those D-line guys. Colton Langley had a great game, I thought.
Oh, he had a great game last night.
He made a lot of hustle plays that, maybe weren't on his side, but he, took them down the field and, was in on tackles that were away from him. So that's what you want to see from your defensive lineman. That's a high motor play right there. And,
a lot of times during the game, we will call the names of the linebackers a lot during the game. Last night, I can't remember much calling very many linebacker names because the defensive line was doing the job.
Yeah, Spur Hearn had a good game. Hunter Hughes had a good game, but you're right. The defensive line, especially, they went to Steers for the first time this season, used 4-down linemen, had Bonner Cotton game, right on the line, I think with his hand in the ground, if I'm not mistaken, for a lot of the game. So it was kind of one of those deals where the linebackers were actually maybe outnumbered a little bit too in this one.
I want to tell you, I got some stats here. Now, at any given time during any given game, at any time, you would look at these stats and go, oh, my gosh. I mean, and against a pretty good Vernon team, check this out. Ben Davis last night was 18 of 25 for 299 yards. I mean, that is amazing. And 7 touchdowns. That's a career night against somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic night. He had one mistake that ended up not being, that could have been a major error. It was actually probably his most, knuckleheaded mistake of the year, if you can say that about Ben Davis, because he is probably the best decision maker I've seen from a 3A quarterback. But, he's getting sacked, throws it off his back foot. It's inbounds, a lot like we saw from the Abilene Wiley quarterback a couple of times. And that ball was actually caught for a 3-yard loss by Chance Moss.
Right.
So, but, yeah, other than that, I mean, the kid was just phenomenal. He was absolutely amazing. 7 touchdowns to go with all of that. It was definitely a career night.
You talk about 7 touchdowns, having a career night for Ben. There's one group that you got to look at that aided him with that.
Oh, the offensive line was phenomenal.
Good gosh, let's talk about that offensive line a little bit. I mean, when you're able to throw 7 touchdowns, and a lot of them were not on the run touchdowns, a lot of them were standing flat-footed, ready to throw. He had all the time in the world last night. Both Ben and Bryce gave big props to the offensive line. Big props to Mr. Dixon out there last night.
Because whenever you were talking to Ben, he said, man, I want to thank that offensive line about 10 times. And he said, led by Kenneth Dixon. He kept saying it over and over, and I thought that was extremely cool. And also, one of the first things out of Coach Davis's mouth last night was crediting the offensive line with a great job they did.
I mean, you look at a team, again, mind you, no knock to all the other teams that Graham has played, but they weren't playing Mineral Wells. They weren't playing Bridgeport last night. They weren't playing some of these other teams. They were playing Vernon, a team that was bringing the blitz all night long. Bringing a bunch of different ways, and still gave Ben a ton of time last night. Now, did they get through a few times? Well, sure, but for the majority of last night, Ben had all the time in the world, which is great because it allows your receivers. There were so many. I'm thinking of at least 2 of those touchdowns last night where it was just I don't know if Vernon didn't follow him on the route or what, but our guys are just standing back there waiting for the ball to get there, and that is credit to. And we're not talking about 10 and 15 yard dink and dunks. We're talking 30, 40 yard bombs out there that. You can't throw those unless you've got the time to be able to throw them.
Well, that was one play, and I don't remember. I think it's the second quarter, where Ben Davis was basically sitting back there in a lawn chair, just picking his poison out there. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, and there's one thing there's a couple of ways to beat man coverage, and the Steers have not seen much man coverage, if any, up until this point, until the Vernon game. And you can either beat it by getting great amounts of separation on your break if you're a receiver, and then, just having the timing to, as soon as that break's hit, the ball's in your hands, or you can get tremendous protection up front and just wait it out and force those safeties and cornerbacks to run around so much that somebody eventually breaks free. And I think we saw the Steers take advantage of the latter last night with such great protection and getting the ball down the field.
All right, we're going to take a break, come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about the rushing game last night and also the penalty situation. So stick around, stay tuned. You're listening to Offsides right here on Q94.7.
It's factory authorized clearance spots at D&J's Polaris. Now's your chance to save up to $1,000 and receive 2.99% financing through September 30th. Save on Polaris Ranger, the absolute best side-by-side utility vehicles in the industry, or the Polaris Sportsman ATV. It's all waiting for you at D&J's Polaris, Southview at Elm and Graham. Now with up to $1,000 savings and financing as low as 2.99. ATVs and side-by-side vehicles can be hazardous to operate. Polaris adult models for ages 16 and over. Always wear a helmet and be sure to take a training course. Polaris ATVs and side-by-side vehicles are not intended for on-road use. Financing with approved credit.
Maximize your greatest investment with the best insulation and roofing products available. Texoma Foam Insulation Services offers these benefits of ThermoSeal insulation. Reduce your energy bills. Enjoy cleaner and healthier indoor air. Improve your home's value and enjoy consistent temperatures. To discover more from ThermoSeal Insulation of the future, call Texoma Foam Insulation Services today at 940-549-3626 or visit their website at texomafoam.com.
You're listening to Offsides with Rick, Joe, and Travis on Q94.7.
Back with Offsides here on your Look at the Leader, Q94.7. Talking about the penalties last night, offensive line, another credit to them. With all that blitzing coming through, you hardly saw any holding calls. And there wasn't many false start calls either.
No.
With due to the fact with those guys flying through, you'd think some of the guys would be jumping, but you know what? They held their ground. And we're not talking about a really experienced offensive line here. I mean, these guys are young guys.
Right.
And you really got to credit them for what they did.
Well, listening to Kenneth Dixon last night, one of the things he was saying, I was trying to find out, is this something that is – the coaches are stressing it week after week after week, or is it a situation where these guys are just growing up as an offensive line together as a team and being able to play better as a cohesive unit? He said it was actually a little bit of both. And so knowing that those guys are coming in, knowing that Vernon guys are going to be blitzing, knowing that they're going to be trying to figure out a way to get and interrupt Ben, you really have to, again, we can't say it enough, hand it to the offensive line that, no false start, not a lot of, I don't think we had any false starts. We might have had one holding. Some of the penalties we had last night were completely legit, but, you would think that there would have been a lot more of false starts, holding, things like that, and just didn't see any of it.
No, it didn't happen that much. Now, looking at the rushing game last night, Graham, check this out, Dion last night, 21 rushes for 163 yards. That's just running the ball. That's not all-purpose yards that he caught passes out of the backfield. That is just running the ball, 163 yards. Now, we knew Dylan was very active last night, but I had no idea he was this active. Now, check this out as far as the rushing game goes. Orlando Heyman last night, we know he was slowed up. He ran for 51 yards last night. Zach Perez ran for 29. Danny Valverde, their second of their two big guns as far as their rushers go. Valverde last night had 6 rushes for 10 yards.
Right, yeah. And there were
that's amazing.
There were a lot of times too that he was running back and forth too. You're not running sideline to sideline quite a bit. So handed to the Steers. We saw a little bit of that week before in Bridgeport. There towards the end of the game, they were doing a lot of the run up the middle and runs and stuff like that. So we talked that, hey, would that be kind of a precursor to what we were going to see this past week at Vernon? And it looks like the boys are ready for it.
You look at what. The Steers did rushing last night. Gonzalez, 163 yards. Ben Davis with 29 yards. Jim Bob Perry with 25. Nick Martin with 24. That's some big numbers from everybody that contributed last night. Now, receiving the ball, check this out. Dylan Gonzalez last night caught 5 passes for 66 yards. You throw that in with his 163. That's over 200 yards for you and Burke Burnett as far as all-purpose yards go last night. Bryce Reeves, 5 catches for 88 yards. Cam Patterson, 3 catches for 81 yards. But all those 88 and 81 yards, every one of them counted because a lot of catching touchdowns last night. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Bryce Reeves with 3 touchdown receptions. Cam Patterson with 2. And, Cam Patterson was our Subway sub of the game. What an awesome game he had. Now, slowed up. We'll see, if he returns to the team. I know he's got a little injury going last night, but what a fantastic night, really, for the sophomore. I believe he's a sophomore, maybe a junior, but just a fantastic night for him.
Connor Smith last night, 2 catches for 48. He had a good game last night, and Hunter Baca only had 19 yards last night, but had that big touchdown there in the third quarter.
Yeah, he sure did. I mean, just didn't get a ton of opportunities, but Hunter Baca probably he and Connor Smith probably play a huge role in the pass blocking and stuff like that. So with all the run success, that a lot of that has to go to those two guys too.
But the coolest catch of the night, Chance Moss, one catch for -3 yards.
That's right. Last year it was Ben Hayes was the offensive lineman that got his chance to get his hands on a crazy pass that went awry and just was able to catch it. And then, of course, this year, who would have thought that Chance Moss would be reeling in a grab off of a couple of tips?
Well, you look at it, you go, -3 yards. Well, he kept the ball out of Vernon's hands.
Yeah, and he kept Ben Davis's completion percentage a little higher.
So very, very cool.
One of the other plays of the game, we talked about the turnover that Vernon had on the 2 or the 3 yard line going into the half, and just how much of a momentum shifter that was. We came out in the third quarter. And we got the ball in the third. We're driving. And I think the other real key play of the game, and boy, I wish I paid attention to the receiver. Maybe you boys can help me out a little bit here. But, we've got Graham facing a 3rd and 20 from Vernon, from our probably 40, 45. And Ben goes out there and throws a bomb. And, 3rd and 20, I think he picked it up. Might have been like 25, 30-yard pass. Anybody, you guys know who that receiver was?
I believe it was Smith.
Yeah. And just, again, one of those passes, and I'll make another note of this on one of the touchdowns as well. Ben was seeming to throw it last night to where only his guys were going to get it. On that 3rd and 20, he led that receiver enough, and there was no one across the middle. If Graham didn't catch that, Vernon wasn't going to get it either. And the same way with one of the touchdowns that he threw to Bryce in the back of the end zone. It was one of those situations where making smart plays, where you're going to throw it, and there's not going to be this, tip it up and maybe get an interception or get a pick or something. It was, hey, if we're not going to catch it, you're not going to get it either.
I thought one of the coolest plays being had last night, offensive line was holding Vernon back. He pump faked about 6 times. He tucked it to run about 2 or 3 times, decided, no, I'm not going to do that, and then just drops back about a yard and just unloads one about 30 yards downfield.
Yeah, and, I thought that's like we talked about. That's with man coverage, you have to sit back, and if you have the time, sit back and wait on things to open up, and I don't think he's used to that. Playing against a lot of zone defenses, it's hey, the receiver's going to get in this hole. This hole's going to be right here, and we are going to, throw a dart to him. And And if that doesn't open up, you got a couple more reads and then you take off. And I think he wanted to take off and probably did take off more than he needed to a little bit last night. But speaking on Joe's point, Ben is just so accurate. I was talking to Hubble Allen, a Graham Steer great, who was a safety on that 09 team, a big part of their success. And he was talking about how he's never seen a quarterback as accurate from, all the way up to 30 yards as Ben Davis. Every ball he throws is in the perfect location, and he makes smart decisions. So, a lot of great plays last night, Rick, like the one you were talking about. A couple of touchdown passes. I really liked when Jake Womack of Womack Construction called the sluggo route, the slant and go, and sure enough, that's exactly what Bryce Reeves ran and caught it in the right corner of the end zone for about a 30-yard TD.
Reason why he's the coach.
That's right.
All right. We're going to hear from a couple of our sponsors, come back, and we're going to have your statewide scores. College football talk coming up. We're going to talk about the big games going on today, and I'm going to bring up the top 5 most obnoxious college football fans out there, so stick around.
It's times like, now that we need to hold on to our vehicles as long as we can. And the Oil Pit has been helping you keep your car or truck for years. Literally. The Hughes family has been working hard to keep your family on the road and safe with oil changes, transmission fluids, and fluid level and tire pressure checks. And that family tradition Tom Hughes started years ago. Stop by the Oil Pit on 4th and Graham or call 940-549-5136.
At Jake Womack Construction, Cornerstone Pools, the goal is to not only help you design and build your dream home, but to make the process easy and enjoyable for you. They're a full-service design-build company with a wide range of experience. Jake Womack can help you with all phases of new home construction or remodeling, procuring suitable land, architecture and design, building your home and landscaping your yard. Call 940-549-9944. Jake Womack Construction, helping you build your dreams.
It's Offsides with Joe, Travis, and Rick on Q94.7.
All right, you're listening to Offsides here on your Lick at the Leader Q94.7. Time to look at the statewide scores so we get into college football. Last night, Abilene Wiley opening up their district play with Big Spring. Big Spring was down 37-35. Big Spring gets the ball, goes down to kick a field goal to win the game with 2 seconds left on the clock, and missed it.
Ooh.
And Wiley wins it 37-35.
Hurts to miss that one.
Yeah, that was kind of a tough one. Brownwood last night, getting back in the winning ways, beat Burnett last night. It's Burnett, darn it. 36-31 in that matchup. Crum last night keeps Bridgeport winless, 21-10 in that game. Also, Snyder last night over Sweetwater, 41-14. And Stephenville looming large on the horizon, 56-22 over the Glen Rose Tigers.
I think we can play with them.
I'm kind of looking forward to that one.
I mean, if we go big school and see them, I really think we can play with them.
You know, I'm not really worried about it after watching the Steers the way they're playing. You know,
Yeah.
We'll see about that one. This one had a lot of impact on Steer future. Wichita Falls Hershey. 35-28 over Burke Burnett last night.
Good to see Burke Burnett score some points. Unfortunately, I really am rooting for Burke Burnett to get into the playoffs. Obviously, Burke Burnett and Hershey getting into the playoffs, that would mean that Iowa Park is out, and that's what we want to see.
That's always a good thing. In Class 2A, the number 7 Cisco Lobos over Holly last night, 64-12 in that matchup. Eastland 59, Breckenridge 14. Breckenridge still having some problems, but Eastland, one of those great 2A teams that just keeps rolling.
Absolutely.
Coach Hyde last night puts 55 on Wichita Falls City View. The Tigers knocked off the Mustangs 55-21. Paradise over Bowie last night, 13-10 in that one. In Class 1A in our listening area, Albany over Roscoe, 44-0 in that one. Also in our listening area, Perrin Witt gets beat by Monday, 27-21. Seymour over Olney last night, 60-14. And a couple of pretty big six-man last night. Newcastle wins last night, 44-39, and Throckmorton over Bryson, 54-0.
Man, good to see Newcastle getting a win. I'm kind of surprised it was that narrow of a win, being as good as they are. But nonetheless, good to see them get back on track. Had a really tough regular season, and I think now that district's here, I think they're really happy because that regular season gauntlet is over with.
All right, that's your high school report. You got something to add, Joe?
No, we're good.
Okay, that's your high school report this morning, and thank you for tuning in for that. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about some college football. I guess.
Real quick before we talk college football here, just thought we'd want to add something to the mix here. Big day coming up.
Oh my gosh! How many times are we going to hear that song today? Okay, that's enough of that.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for Texas, they're going to be hearing that quite a bit.
I think we're going to be hearing that Boomer Sooner a lot today. Texas, Oklahoma, getting it going. Now, one thing about this game, you got Case McCoy is going to be starting today for the Longhorns.
Absolutely.
And
Graham's
then
own.
We'll see what happens there. Graham Steer, Case McCoy, and heard this morning that. The Oklahoma defense is going to be missing a couple of key players this morning in the game. One of them was called the heart and soul of the defense. Not going to be playing today.
Oh no!
But I don't know. If that's going to be near enough. I think Oklahoma pretty big in this game.
No, Texas is just not in position to win this game this year, and. I think the best they can hope for is to not make it as bad as last year, because last year was an embarrassment. It really was, and Texas fans will tell you right now that last year was an embarrassment, and they're just, they're praying that this year is not the same thing. This is a big school with a lot of pride, and this is a big game for them and always has been. And it's one of those deals where for whatever reason, Oklahoma has done all the right things and Texas has done all the wrong things in the last few years, and we're seeing it out on the field now.
I heard a stat this morning that kind of blew me away. If you took the last 2 years' halftime scores, combined them, it would be 70 Oklahoma, 12 for the Longhorns. And they're having a hard time. Texas is having a hard time selling tickets for this game. I think a lot of Longhorn fans have checked out on this team, and I think a lot of them have checked out on Mack Brown.
When you look at some of the issues that Mack Brown is having, let's just keep it in the context of this game today. And you look at a coach like Bob Stoops and the program he runs up there at Oklahoma, they're typically year after year after year in the top 10, usually when they're finishing. And sure, every team's going to come in with some injuries. Every team is going to have, your season-ending injuries throughout the middle of the year that's going to affect their team. But you look at the program like Oklahoma versus Texas, and, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Texas seems to always be paper champions on recruiting day, yet they just can't seem to pull the talent out of these guys. Yet you've got a team like Oklahoma that, they're not fighting for the championship. We're not fighting for the title every year, but they seem to always be in the running. They seem to always be in the top 10, top 15. They're always going to come out and play hard. They're going to lose games here and there. But you talk about the overall program since Stoops has been there, and of course you've got the long tradition even before that. But the program since he's been there, he's able, and his coaches are able to pull the talent out of these guys to keep them competitive. And you feel bad for Mack Brown. Personally, he seems to be a great guy personally. He just, I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's his coaching staff or whatever. Just not able to, bring that competitive and that the talent out of these guys.
They're saying everything right in Austin right now. I mean, Mack Brown's saying, "I love it here. I plan on being here. I don't plan on going anywhere." You've got all these other coaches. I wouldn't be a bit surprised they don't bring that guy back from Florida because they're having a hard time.
Yeah. I've heard lots of talks about Muschamp.
That's what I'm saying, and in the background, the wheels are turning on this thing. There is no way that in Austin that they're just going to sit back and go, okay, well, let's just see how this thing works out. Because they know at the University of Texas, if they don't win ball games, if they don't put a team on the field that's going to win, that translates into loss of money. And so they're going to do everything they could do to get the best situation they can.
And their problem, I think they got lucky with Colt McCoy, and I don't think they really had a strong plan after Vince Young as far as, their team's direction. They got really lucky to get one of the great college quarterbacks in Colt McCoy. But, ever since then, they really haven't had a plan there and haven't done a good job of evaluating talent there. And but, you can't put it all on the quarterback because this defense is atrocious. They can't tackle anybody.
No, they got some big names on the defense, but they can't stop anybody. And that's a big problem with them right now. We'll have to see how this thing turns out, but I really think that if Mack loses this game today and he loses it big, that's the last nail in the coffin.
Right, and it's almost not going to matter what happens the rest of the season. If he goes out there tonight and or today actually, here in about 2.5 hours,
another couple hours,
he rolls out a stinker. The nail's going to be in the coffin. I heard another report earlier this week. They were talking about the Texas program and what some of the scouts in the NFL look at and kind of pull from that program. And it seems like, and I've said this for years about USC just because I'm not a fan of theirs, but it seems like Texas has a bit of a soft program when these guys are going into the NFL. If you look at your, what should be just a farm system of offensive linemen, not a lot of offensive linemen have gone in the first round in the past, 5-6 years coming out of Texas. And maybe that's part of the issue down there is that it's not a culture of winning. It's more of the old cliche. It's the old country club mentality down there that, hey, once you get there, we can kind of kick back and, live it up a little bit down Austin way. But, you look at a team like Texas, what is it going to take for them to turn themselves around? Look at what Baylor's doing and what Art Briles has been able to do down there. Is he a possible candidate? I think they're going to go out and they're probably going to try to money whip somebody a little bit to bring in a big name to get, But it's not just about a name. They got to produce results as well, and it's going to take, I don't look at it as them hiring somebody within that first year they turn the program around, because you're going to have to get some of these guys out of there that have this mentality of country club style, and you're going to have to get some recruits in there and guys in there that just want to play.
The other day I was listening to some programs. They was talking about Texas-Oklahoma ball game, and they were talking about potential coaching candidates for the University of Texas. One that was thrown out there that just made me go, what? But the more I got to thinking about it, we'll see. Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly. He's not having a great day. He's not having a great time in Philadelphia. He left the University of Oregon. You know why? Because they didn't want to, because
he didn't want to deal with all the
sanctions and stuff.
Yeah, the sanctions.
What would it take, or could it take anything to pry him out of Philadelphia, bring him to the University of Texas?
No, but I know that Texas, for Chip Kelly during his college recruiting days, Texas was a hot spot for him as far as his recruiting. You got the Rogers brothers, and they played at Oregon State, but nonetheless, I know that Oregon did. This was a place where they like to pull talent from. So I don't know if he'd like to be down in the heart of that. We'll see. He's not having a great year with the Eagles, but most college coaches, they come in. Think about Jimmy Johnson when he came from Miami to Dallas. He had 2 bad seasons before they started to get things on track, and then that turned into a great thing. So I don't know. I think Chip Kelly would probably remain optimistic about his new opportunity in the NFL, but. Texas has the money, so
we'll see how that one goes. Now, speaking of Texas OU game, we, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care who wins this game. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma wins it, big deal. Texas wins it, big deal. I don't really care. I'm more concerned about the fact that I got dissed on a party, but, I'll get over that somehow. But
still talking about the party.
I couldn't help myself. But it's funny how fans of the Longhorns and fans of the Sooners want to give you their point on why they're going to win. I don't care. Yeah. I do not care at all who wins this game. But, I'll be in the store. It'll be like, hey, let me tell you why Oklahoma's going to win this game. I don't care. Let me tell you why Texas will win this game. So we have compiled a list here. This came from BroBible.com of the 5 most obnoxious college football fans ever, okay? Number 5 on the list, Notre Dame. Notre Dame hasn't won anything since what? The Galloping Ghost was running around Red Grange, Mm-hmm. Haven't won anything in forever, Well,
they got to the national championship last year, but that was kind of a fluke deal just based on publicity from ESPN and all the Notre Dame supporters that they have
doesn't
on
mean
staff
anything.
There.
Doesn't mean anything. And Notre Dame fans, they live and die Notre Dame football.
Sure.
In their okay. Number 4, USC. USC fans. Now, Joe, you don't like USC. USC fans are the 4th most obnoxious fans out there.
I would almost say that USC fans are probably some of your fair weather fans as well. I think USC, because of where they're at, they get a lot of fans that, probably couldn't name 1 or 2 guys on the team. They just know that if they live in Southern California, they're supposed to – the cool thing to do is be a USC fan because UCLA's down right now in football. So, yeah, obnoxious, fair weather. They should be number 1 in my list.
Number 3, which really doesn't affect us a whole lot around here, I guess if you're a University of Michigan Wolverine fan, is Ohio State. Number 3 on the list. It really doesn't matter to me. These next ones we do come across a lot. Number 2, LSU, Louisiana State University. I lived in Louisiana for a while, and there's 2 things you do not talk about in Louisiana. You don't say one word about the Saints, and you don't say one word about the LSU Tigers unless you're ready to fight. And I'm talking about fight. I'm not talking about just get into a verbal disagreement. I'm talking about they will take you out behind a building and beat you if you say anything about the LSU Tigers.
Sure. And, LSU travels so well, whether they're playing nobody from nowhere or they're playing, Alabama. They seem to travel so well. I've seen it, firsthand when they've played at AT&T Stadium, just how many LSU fans come to the Dallas-Fort Worth area to be involved in that game. And that, that's a rabid fan base. And like you were saying, I think that's the obnoxious part about it is the fact that, you can't really have a true open discussion about football, because if you say that LSU will make any mistake, then automatically you're just like the worst
idiot.
person ever. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. When in reality, no football team's perfect. And when you can't have a real open discussion with the team, even if maybe you're not an LSU fan, but you're not necessarily against them, you're just kind of telling it like it is, and they don't want to hear it, and that gets really annoying.
I think one of the deals with the reason maybe why LSU fans are so passionate and rabid about their team is for so many years the Saints were the Aints, and so all you had were the Tigers in the state, and so they knew they could kind of hang their bell cow or hang their bell on the Saints, and you knew they were going to, or excuse me, the Tigers, you knew they were going to be good every year. So maybe now that the Aints have come back to being the Saints. LSU is always going to be, they're always going to be pretty rabid down Baton Rouge way.
Craziness. All right, we're going to hear from our sponsors. Come back, and we're going to discuss the number one most obnoxious fan base in college football. You're listening to Offsides. Stay tuned.
Bring the excitement of the game right into your home with Razor Sharp Photography. Bryan Ray at Razor Sharp Photography covers all of Graham sports, including high school and junior high football, volleyball, tennis, basketball, baseball, Little League, and every other special event. Log on bray.smugmug.com for all that Razor Sharp Photography has to offer. That's bray.smugmug.com. Remember, if it's not Razor Sharp, it's not Graham sports. Razor Sharp Photography.
Maximize your greatest investment with the best insulation and roofing products available. Texoma Foam Insulation Services offers these benefits of ThermoSeal insulation. Reduce your energy bills. Enjoy cleaner and healthier indoor air. Improve your home's value and enjoy consistent temperatures. To discover more from ThermoSeal Insulation of the Future, call Texoma Foam Insulation Services today at 940-549-3626 or visit their website at texomafoam.com.
It's times like, now that we need to hold on to our vehicles as long as we can. And the Oil Pit has been helping you keep your car or truck for years. Literally. The Hughes family has been working hard to keep your family on the road and safe with oil changes, transmission fluids, and fluid level and tire pressure checks. And that family tradition Tom Hughes started years ago. Stop by the Oil Pit on 4th and Graham or call 940-549-5136.
Now, back to Offsides with Travis, Rick, and Joe on Q94.7.
All right, welcome back to Offsides. We're talking college football, and we're talking the most obnoxious fans out there. Not the most obnoxious team, not the most obnoxious college, but the most obnoxious fans out there. Now, the list so far has been Notre Dame number 5, USC number 4, Ohio State number 3, LSU number 2. Guess who ties at the top of the list? The Longhorns and the Sooners with the most obnoxious fans ever. And I will tell you this. I have been down to Austin, and I've watched games down there, and you've got these guys showing up with their little loafers, no socks, their pressed khaki shorts, their sweater tied around their neck, and they're there to conduct a business meeting instead of watching a football game. Sure. That is obnoxious, but I'm telling you, there is not a fan on the face of the planet that's the most obnoxious fan in the world that is at OU. I was up there for a ball game not long ago, and you can't watch the ball game for all the knuckleheads in front of you sitting there screaming every time they get a first down. That's an OU. First down. Every time there's a pass completion, you hear somebody screaming. Every time the band comes out. I mean, I understand that you're passionate about your team. I totally understand that. But you know what? You say one little word about anything OU, and they will jump on you faster than a pack of dogs on a cat.
Boy, you really got a lot of hatred there in your heart.
Well,
right?
It's not that. It's that, I get pulled.
Oh, they call that passion. I'm sorry.
They call it passion.
I
get pulled in 50 billion different directions when I go places and how in the world Aggie fans didn't make this list, I don't know.
I'm wondering why Aggie did not beat the, especially now that they got, they got their Johnny Football pride wearing it on their sleeve and their chest and all that.
Well, going back to that OU game we went to, it was a quest to get to the stadium. We had to park 70 miles away. You had to wade your way through all the guys screaming, throwing beer, hollering and yelling.
Let me just go on record here as saying I I think OU fans are wonderful.
Yeah, you're just doing that to kiss up is what you're doing. But I'm just saying, as far as an obnoxious fan base, and you say anything about Oklahoma, if I were to say today, and I'm not saying because I don't care, if I were to say today that Texas has a chance of beating Oklahoma, I can promise you before the day's out, I will get cussed out.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's the thing about both of these teams, and probably why they're atop this list is because they have tons of fair weather fans. I mean, millions of not fair weather, but fans that have no affiliation with the school other than just rooting for their football team. You know,
right.
They've got tons of fans that don't have a family member, anybody that went or they didn't go to school there. You know, it's one of those deals where, you know, both of these schools have been big man on campus, so to speak, for quite some time, and eventually, people just start going for them because their friends root for them, and so on and on it goes. It's kind of a domino effect as far as fanhood goes.
What's more obnoxious to you? I ask you guys this. What's more obnoxious to you? The fans who sit there with their little press khakis conducting business, and then somebody scores a touchdown, and they're like, oh, we have a touchdown? You know, or the ones that are foaming at the mouth at every little nitpicky thing that happens.
Man, that's tough because those are both, I've been to both sorts of games. I've been to both sections, like one section that's just rabid and another section that's just, quiet and refined and not really there to watch the game, but more so there just because that's the place to be. And I would say that the latter is the more annoying for me, the little golf clap fan with, all the stuff you're talking about. That I'd much rather be in, standing next to a, someone who's just crazy about their team as opposed to somebody who's, just kind of there because they want to be there and they don't know anything about the game. And usually those people scream things at the game occasionally that make no sense.
Make no sense at all.
Yeah, but I guess you get that from both sides because the rabbit side's going to want every single call in the book. That's a hard one. That's a toss-up.
Yeah, that's a tough one there. And, one of the we'll have to get into. We're fixing to have to get into the games today. But one of the best experiences I've ever had college football wise was at Lubbock. We went out there, and I'm telling you, Texas Tech.
On the plains, West Texas Prairie.
It was actually a lot of fun because people are out there tailgating, and they were inviting you over to come over and be part of their tailgate party. That when you went into the stadium, everybody was having a good. It was like going to a big family reunion.
Where they take those tortillas, they throw them on the field, they say, "Get your guns up."
That's right. It was kind of fun, but. I guess the best.
That was really good.
Yeah, that was a good one, Joe. I guess of all the fan experiences I've had, Texas Tech really takes the cake.
Yeah, I've been to a few Tech games, and they're a blast to go to. And you can always find a good place to sit. And as long as you're wearing some red and black, I think everyone's happy to see you. So.
Yeah, it's a good situation. All right, college games today. We got to get those in real fast before we get to pro talk.
Let's run them down the list here real quick. Got a couple of actually got 4 or 5 early games. Of course, we got the OU Texas game. We've kind of beat that into the ground. One game I think that's really going to be an interesting one to see. Don't know how good Iowa State is. They almost beat Texas, but then again, that's Texas. So you got Iowa State visiting number 20 Texas Tech, undefeated Texas Tech out Lubbock way. I know Jane Beal is headed out to the game with her kiddos, so y'all have fun out there. Another really early game. You've got number 25 unbeaten Missouri going into Georgia, number 7. Now Georgia, of course, is 4-1, but Georgia's a really, really good SEC team, so that ought to be a really good game. One game that I'm also interested in. Kind of surprised, not really sure what's going on with South Carolina these days. I think Clowney has been hurt for quite a while now, so maybe he's not.
He took himself out of the game.
Yeah, he's not having a huge impact. But you got South Carolina visiting, going up Hog Way. They're going Hoggin this weekend, Rick. They're going Hoggin. The Gamecocks are going Hoggin. There's a joke there somewhere, but it's 11:21 kickoff time for that. Couple other games. One of the, I'll tell you, we talked about Art Briles earlier. You've got Baylor number 15. I think the question's going to be, is it 50 or is it 60 points this weekend that Baylor's going to hang on K-State? I think they can pretty much pick their poison and just pretty much name their score. Really big classic Saturday, sit on the couch, SEC matchup. You've got the Gators going Baton Rouge way. and be playing the LSU Tigers. You got 17 Florida going in to see LSU. Kind of a weird game to be playing at 3:00 in the afternoon today, just because these are typically late night games. But you got number 2 Oregon going into number 16 Washington. That'll be kicking off at 3:00. Kind of a matchup here. You've got Michigan at Penn State kicking off at 4. And just kind of looking through, Alabama's playing at 6:00 tonight against Kentucky. That ought to be a sleeper. One of the games, too, talking about fans, number 9 Texas A&M going into Ole Miss. That ought to be an interesting game. You're not really sure, with Ole Miss being at home. We were really hoping that was maybe going to be an upset a couple of weeks ago when they went into, was it Texas? I think that they played. Was it? Yeah. And so that Texas A&M going into Ole Miss. You talk about your press khakis and sweater over the shirt with your Oxfords, going into where's that? Oxford, Mississippi, and Ole Miss. Boy, that's home of the big Southern. Never mind.
Mint juleps and all that stuff.
Mint juleps and the whole bit. So that's just kind of a handful of your games that we've got going on today. We've also got just a great day tomorrow. I think Travis has got a great story about Adrian Peterson and his whole situation.
Right. We're going to get to that pro talk in just
I don't know if I'd call that great, but
just one more minute, and we'll get back to that. We've got
sad saga.
That's right. It is a sad story. Yeah. We're going to hear from our sponsors. Last break. Come back, and we're going to do a fast pro football talk. So stay tuned.
If creating the perfect outdoor retreat is in your future, then Cornerstone Pools is where you will find design ideas that become reality for your custom gunite pool and spa and outdoor kitchen and living areas, helping you create family fun and memories that last a lifetime. Honesty, integrity, dependability, the cornerstone of everything they do. Call 940-549-9944. Jake Womack Construction Cornerstone Pools, helping you build your dreams.
It's factory authorized clearance month at D&J's Polaris. Now's your chance to save up to $1,000 and receive 2.99% financing through September 30th. Save on Polaris Ranger, the absolute best side-by-side utility vehicles in the industry, or the Polaris Sportsman ATV. It's all waiting for you at D&J's Polaris, Southview at Elm and Graham. Now with up to $1,000 savings and financing as low as 2.99. ATVs and side-by-side vehicles can be hazardous to operate. Polaris adult models for ages 16 and over. Always wear a helmet and be sure to take a training course. Polaris ATVs and side-by-side vehicles are not intended for on-road use. Financing with approved credit.
You're listening to Offsides with Rick, Joe, and Travis on Q 94.7.
All right, back to Offsides. Got just a few more minutes here in the show, and time to throw some pro football talk out there. A story this week has pretty much taken over pro football involving Adrian Peterson, and I don't understand. I mean, I got kids. I could not imagine the pain that this guy is going through and the tragedy that took place this week.
Yeah, it's terrible. And, his son was basically, this 2-year-old son of Adrian Peterson's was basically beaten to death by an adult, which is just, I can't even imagine. I don't know if y'all know this, but my son turns 2 today. It's his 2nd birthday.
Really?
Yeah, we're having a party.
I hope y'all have a good time.
But no, as a father to a 2-year-old, I can't imagine the anger and the pain. It's just an awful deal. And I know that one thing I've heard is that Peterson really didn't know this kid was his son till about 2 months ago. Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, and the thing is that he really didn't know that this child existed. But he did step up to the plate.
Yeah, one of the stories I was reading this morning was that the mother of the child had thought it was thought a different gentleman was the father. Paternity test came back incorrect, and so she did some kind of thinking back and reached out to Adrian Peterson, said this may be your child, and for everything I've heard from about all day Adrian Peterson is the fact that he's just a stand-up guy. And instead of, you see a lot of this in the news today of he's not my kid or whatever. Adrian went the completely different route and basically stepped up to the plate and said, how can I help? And had actually planned on having a trip to South Dakota. in the upcoming month to visit with the child, maybe get to know the kiddo and stuff. And just a heartbreaking day. And, of course, thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. But, man, what a story.
If you didn't hear the story, what happened was that this young lady that is the mother of Adrian Peterson's child had a boyfriend who came in and basically beat up the child and went to the hospital, later passed. But, there's no excuse for that. He has been arrested, and do so. He'll be seeing his day in court. And, it's sad. We sit there and we argue about Tony Romo. We argue about pro football. We argue about college, high school football. We talk about all this stuff. But you know what? When something like this happens, all that stuff pales in comparison to what happens here.
Oh, of course. In my humble opinion, I think this is why you have a fast track to the electric chair or whatever we're using these days, to lethal injection.
Take him out behind the courthouse.
Exactly. Get this guy out of society as fast as possible. He doesn't even need to be in prison society. He needs to be in, He
needs to be in the graveyard.
Yeah, that's right. And, beating up a small 2-year-old boy is just, that's my definition of.
That's epitome of a coward.
Yeah.
You can't get anybody that would hit women and children has got to be the scourge of the earth.
Oh, it's disgusting.
It's
disgusting. But okay, let's end on a better note. That's a sad story.
Yeah, that's a sad story.
But
Cowboy Redskins.
Cowboy Redskins, huge game coming up. Rick, I think the question on everybody's mind is, okay, of course, we all saw how explosive the offense was against the Broncos. I think what everybody wants to know is that the exception to the rule, or is this offense about to go super high-powered down the field?
Did the Cowboys play up to their competition last week? This is something that I heard all week long. Cowboys knew it was a big game. They knew with Peyton Manning and the Broncos coming in. Did they play up to their competition because of the way this game was working out? Can they do that same thing by playing over their competition this week?
Sure, absolutely. And the Redskins are down. The whole NFC East is down. The Cowboys have a prime opportunity to separate themselves from the very poor playing pack that is the NFC East. And you know what? I really expect a win. I think the Cowboys, probably have some hard feelings after losing 2 to the Redskins last year. The Redskins are down. RG3 is not his same old self, the same guy that we saw last season. So I think if they can continue to get the ball downfield, one cog in that's really important, I think, is the play of Cole Beasley. The young slot receiver. He only got a few catches for about 43 yards last week in a game where Tony Romo threw 500 yards, but he was so essential on some third down conversions. I think he is a guy coming across the middle. He needs to be on the field.
Cowboys will win this game tomorrow night if they can control the mistakes. Yeah. And, we talked about this, and last week, everybody you can have your opinion whatever way you want to go with it. Tony Romo had a phenomenal game last week. He just threw that interception at the worst time in the game, and it's going to be magnified a billion times just because, he threw an interception last year in Washington at the worst time. He throws, they happen at the worst time. If they can limit mistakes, they can win this game.
I don't know. I was looking at some stats, and Romo's only thrown, he's played in how many games? He's played in every game except for 2010 when he got hurt since 2006. But he's only thrown 7 of those. And they've listed 5 or 6 quarterbacks that threw last drive, game-winning interceptions, and some of them are Peyton Manning, your Drew Breeses, your Tom Brady's. They've all done the same thing. It just gets magnified here because you've got a really loud fan base, a huge fan base, and it magnifies every single mistake. Now one thing that I want to point out as far as this coming up game is that the Cowboys are, they're really short on the defensive line. And I think that one of the reasons Manning had such a good day, other than the fact that he's Peyton Manning, it's the fact that they got absolutely zero pressure on him for the entire game.
Yeah, Monty Kiffin's going to have to put an extra dose of Geritol in tomorrow because he's going to be up late. I don't know. That's kind of past his bedtime as far as, defense, playing coach. So he's really going to have to pick it up tomorrow night.
One of the things that was kind of disappointing to hear, Monty Kiffin had such a great game 1, 6 picks, whatever it was, and was able to jump out and talk to the media and kind of beat on his chest a little bit. Hey, look at me. from what I understand, he was nowhere to be found at the end of the game last week. And I think if you're going to come in here and you're going to take all the praise, you got to take the criticism a little bit too. The Tampa 2, you've got to, which from what I've been told, they're not really playing a true Tampa 2. You know
what Tampa 2 means, don't you? You only get 2 quarters of defense.
Yeah.
Now you know what? I think the Cowboys are maybe not playing as much Tampa 2 because of the cornerbacks that are on the field and the fact that you've got 2 cover guys that aren't really built for the Tampa 2. They're not the hard hitters. So
all right, we got to go. All right, appreciate you tuning in today to Offsides here on Q94.7. Have a great weekend, and just come back with us next Saturday at 9 o'clock.
Maybe Travis will tell you about the party.
Yeah, maybe so.
You've just experienced Offsides with Q94.7. Brought to you by Texoma Foam Insulation, Womack Construction, D&J's Polaris, and the Oil Pit. Sponsors are not held liable for mental anguish, skin conditions, or any other adverse reactions. We now return to your regular programming.